Two hands. One finger points toward the heavens. Beside it, an open palm reaches toward the earth. They seem to offer opposing instructions. Look beyond the visible world, or trust what can be seen, touched, measured, and experienced. For a moment, forget the names of the men making these gestures. Forget that this is one of the most famous paintings in Western art. Simply notice the contradiction. Then the image begins to open. The hands belong to Plato and Aristotle, walking side by side at the intellectual and visual center of Raphael's School of Athens. Plato carries the Timaeus and points upward, toward eternal forms and truths beyond the material world. Aristotle holds the ethics and gestures horizontally, toward experience, observation, and life as it is lived. They disagree about the nature of reality. And yet, Raphael makes them walk together. That decision is the entrance to the painting, but it is not yet the mystery. Around them, dozens of thinkers gather beneath immense arches, marble vaults, and receding corridors. Every gesture, staircase, interval, and line of sight seems to participate in the same silent argument. By the end of this film, this fresco may no longer look like a crowd of famous philosophers. It may look like a machine for holding contradictions together. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden systems of thought inside familiar masterpieces, subscribe. There are many more rooms like this one waiting to be entered. At first, Plato and Aristotle appear to divide the painting in two: heaven and earth, idea and matter, invisible principles and observable reality. But look more carefully. They are not confronting each other like enemies. They move in the same direction. Their robes overlap. Their pace is almost synchronized. Raphael transforms disagreement into companionship. The conflict remains, but hostility disappears. And this raises a larger question. Why would a Christian pope commission a monumental gathering of pagan philosophers inside his private intellectual world? The answer begins with the room itself. The Stanza della Segnatura was originally used by Pope Julius II as a library and private office. The School of Athens occupied only one wall. This was not an isolated celebration of antiquity. It belonged to a much larger system. But before we reveal that system, we must understand how Raphael prevented this single wall from collapsing into chaos. The fresco contains dozens of bodies, yet it never feels crowded. Raphael does not arrange them as a list. He divides them into constellations. Pythagoras bends over a book surrounded by students, translating number into harmony. A geometer leans toward the floor, using a compass to make thought visible through movement. Some figures calculate, some observe, some teach, some doubt, others withdraw into themselves. A solitary thinker rests his head against his hand. A student leans forward. A skeptic turns away. Not every identity is certain, and perhaps that uncertainty matters. Raphael was not merely illustrating a catalog of names. He was giving physical form to different ways of knowing. Calculation has a posture. Debate has a rhythm. Contemplation creates distance. Teaching closes the space between two bodies. The figures behave like sentences, and the empty spaces between them behave like punctuation. So consider the two gestures at the center. Which direction does your own understanding naturally follow? Toward Plato's invisible ideals or Aristotle's experienced world? Leave your answer in the comments. The painting becomes more interesting when its disagreement continues beyond the frame. Now look behind the philosophers. The architecture is not a passive background. It is the hidden discipline governing everything. The immense arches draw from Bramante's vision for the rebuilding of St. Peter's. But inside the fresco, they become something more. They resemble the chambers of an idealized mind. Lines emerge from the floor. Marble divisions narrow toward the distance. Coffers, steps, and columns repeat with mathematical control. Follow them. Almost every major line guides the eye toward the space between Plato and Aristotle. Not toward Plato alone. Not toward Aristotle alone. Toward the interval that holds them both. Perspective is often described as a Renaissance technique for creating depth. Here, it becomes a philosophical law. It allows dozens of separate lives to occupy one coherent world. The figures may disagree, but the architecture refuses fragmentation. This is why the painting feels effortless. Its order is so complete that the calculation disappears. If seeing that hidden structure has changed the way you look at the fresco, leaving a like helps us continue making slow, carefully researched documentaries like this one. But the painting contains another contradiction. Raphael's originality was built from other people's discoveries. He learned clarity from Perugino. He absorbed psychological organization from Leonardo. He studied the monumental force of Michelangelo's bodies. He drew from classical sculpture, Bramante's architecture, ancient philosophy, Christian theology, and the competitive atmosphere of Rome. A less confident artist might have been crushed beneath that weight. Raphael did something stranger. He absorbed these influences without allowing any one of them to dominate. There is something of Leonardo in the relationships between figures, something of Michelangelo in their physical gravity, something of Bramante in the architecture. And yet, the completed world belongs to none of them. There is a difference between imitation and transformation. Imitation repeats a source. Transformation changes the relationship between sources. Raphael's genius may have been metabolic. He could take competing languages into himself, break them apart, and reorganize them into a harmony that had not existed before. Even time is reorganized. The thinkers in this fresco lived across different centuries. They could never have gathered in one physical place. The scene is an impossible assembly, a meeting beyond chronology. And someone else is hidden inside it. Not an ancient philosopher, but the young man who constructed this entire world. Near the edge of the fresco, one figure turns his face outward. Raphael. He does not place himself between Plato and Aristotle. He does not stand above the philosophers or claim authority over them. He remains close to the margin and looks directly toward us. The moment is quiet. The Creator has entered the world he created, but he has also left an opening for the spectator. His gaze crosses the boundary between painted space and real space. Raphael is inside the conversation. And now, so are we. But the largest revelation requires us to step back even farther. The School of Athens is only one wall. Across the room stands Raphael's theological composition, the Disputa. Elsewhere, Parnassus gives form to poetry. Justice completes the intellectual program. Philosophy, theology, poetry, justice. Reason does not erase faith. Faith does not silence poetry. Poetry does not replace law. Each receives its own space, dignity, rhythm, and relationship to the whole. The room becomes an architecture of knowledge. And here, in the pause between these walls, Raphael's deeper achievement finally appears. He did not merely illustrate philosophy. He designed a visual philosophy of coexistence. His answer to disagreement was not to force every idea into sameness. It was to build a world strong enough to contain difference. That possibility reaches far beyond Renaissance art. We often imagine intelligence as the ability to win an argument, defeat an opponent, or discover the single correct answer. Raphael suggests another form of intelligence, the ability to create conditions in which opposing truths become meaningful together. Share this film with someone who might see genius or disagreement differently after entering this room. Now return to the beginning. One finger points upward. One palm reaches toward the earth. At first, the gestures appeared to divide reality, but the true subject of the fresco may be the space between them. The interval where idealism meets experience, where antiquity enters a Christian palace, where influence becomes originality, where individual minds remain distinct yet participate in a larger order. Raphael's genius may not have been the power to choose one truth over another. It may have been the power to see relationships where others saw contradictions, and to give those contradictions a form so harmonious that, more than 5 centuries later, we can still enter it.